Hi there, and welcome back, friends of a thoughtful gaming experience. This is your host, Immanuel Ken, and this is a guide to Wizardry 8 character building. And we're going to create a new character, a fighter. So stay tuned for a good fighter for your party if you want to build one and don't have experience with this game, or just looking for some new inspirations. We'll give you the overview of a standard, very good fighter here. So let's create the character. So, with a fighter, you can see the primary attributes are strength, vitality, dexterity. I would add speed, and even later you can also add senses in, but these are the three main attributes. And you can even argue to raise speed first and then dexterity. Anyways, let's take the races. You can see by switching the races how many bonus points they have. In general, you can say that races with high bonus points are well suited for the respective class, but yeah, there are exceptions to that. Anyways, the classic fighter is the Lizardman fighter. In this case, we'll make it female, and as you already have 70 vitality with a Lizardman fighter, you should go for like such an attribute distribution. You really don't need to raise vitality until the end of the game, when you have raised strength, dexterity and speed to the max, and you should, if you like it more comfy, more hits, you should go for strength and dexterity. And this is a general advice, not only for the Lizardmen. If you're looking for some more damage with a little bit more risk, because you don't hit as well, you will go for strength and speed. Strength raises your to hit. Strength also raises damage. Dexterity raises your to hit and to penetrate with physical attacks, and the number of physical attacks in combat and all weapon skills, so it's pretty helpful as well. And speed is the initiative and the number of swings per attack, and the number of attacks per turn. So speed really multiplies your damage, dexterity solidifies it and raises it somehow, and strength is like the basis of your damage. Vitality is like how many hit points and stamina you get. Strength also adds to your stamina pretty much very good. And that's why strength is like I would say strength is the primary attribute. After that you can go for dexterity or speed, and vitality if you need it. In that case, you don't need it until the late game. The fighter gets a ton of hit points anyway, and if you want to make a fighter that does melee damage, you should put vitality to the later parts of the game. So what is the fighter good for? This fighter would be good for melee damage, and it would be good for tanking still, and it is still okay in ranged, because strength also raises your ranged damage. Dexterity is good for the ranged. Senses would be good too, but not so good here. Speed is also good, of course, for ranged, raising the number of attacks, but primarily the fighter is a melee damage dealer, with some pretty good tanking abilities. And with a fighter you should really go for, I think the main races are a Lizardman fighter, the Dragon fighter. There's also, you can see pretty good values here. Well, low intelligence and piety though, but that's okay. The Hobbit actually has the best values, all in all, because he has a high senses value as well. He has good dexterity, he's okay vitality. Is not too low intelligence, which raises your combat skills, so you can go for a Hobbit fighter if you want. But my absolute favorite would really be the Mook. A Mook fighter still has good values. He will have pretty good skill upgrades with his high intelligence, and he is oversized which means he can use oversized weapons like the giant's sword, which is pretty helpful. It's a big two-handed sword, and yeah, it's pretty helpful to have it. It's around there in the middle of the game, and it's a good sword until the end of the game if you don't find anything else. Also, the Moog has good resistances, as you see here. He has a high mental resistance, which can be pretty helpful. If you take the Lizardman, he has a low mental resistance, which can be a problem. So if someone controls the Lizardman via turncoat, via insanity, he can wipe out your whole party. So for the safe option, just take a Moog. He's not that speedy, but he's your tough, reliable guy still. 50 vitality is enough for a fighter as well. And yeah, I just take this as a good example for a solid fighter. If you want the breakthrough fighter, the total power gaming fighter, then take the Lizardman or the Dragon. They do the most damage, but you may have problems in the later game because of the resistance modifiers. And here plus 15 resistance basically means you have 15% more resistance. So it's pretty good values here. So for the skills of the fighter, you should really go for close combat, and if you don't have many melee attackers in this, go for swords. Swords are the best weapons in the game that are accessible to fighters, and if you're just like starting it and want to add some ranged, then take bow. If you see your fighter more as a tank, then you can add shield and can have a one-handed sword and a shield. It's really not worth to go for dual weapons in most cases, as the secondary hand, there are not really good options for that. You're much better off to take a two-handed sword later, and yeah, that will be a good choice. And on the other hand, if you want to spread out your damage, you can go for pole arm. I wouldn't take sword then, because there are also good pole arms in the game. So you can go for pole arms to axe, mace and flail, all good options, but I wouldn't go for something like a dagger later. And yeah, the axe is really not the best. Prefer the sword over the axe, prefer the pole arm over the axe, prefer the mace and flail over the axe. But if you're hellbound to take an axe, you can take that. There are good axes in the game as well. So let's take the standard values here. And let's call her a tough fighter. Why I'm taking a female here? Because you can early in the game get some items that replenish your stamina pretty quickly, that regenerate it, and that item is only for females. You will get it pretty often, usually, and yeah, so preferable to take a female, but you don't have to, because in the late game it's really not important anymore. So, and you can, with a fighter, you can go easily to through the early game and even the mid game, because fighter is like the damage dealer #1 for melee damage. And now you can see you have high stamina, you have a good carrying capacity, and your tough fighter is ready for battle. So what are the pros and cons of a fighter compared to other classes? The fighter has absolutely great armor. You can see it here, but he has the choice of nearly all kinds of armor except the Asian Oriental armors. He has nearly all the weapon choices. He has really high damage, and you can use the berserk attack option later. And yeah, that is really helpful for a high melee damage. What he doesn't have though is utility. He's absolutely useless with anything for utility, like you won't give him the intellect skills usually, like artifacts or communication. Well, the Moog could do that as well, but you want high melee damage from your fighter, and even high range damage is a good option, as you have the full choice of weapons with him or her. And of course the fighter also has no spells and no buffs. It's just a straightforward class, and you shouldn't really pick more than like 4 fighters probably, or 3 fighters, if you want to have the quality of life skills. But a fighter is a really good class, and if you're new to the game, 1 fighter will be pretty good in your party if you build him or her like that. As I said, Lizardman, Draken, Hobbit and Moog would be my favorites. You can also go for Dwarves if you like that. They have good damage reduction, but really a fighter doesn't need damage reduction. A fighter is so tough, he'll die last, usually. So have fun with your fighter, and happy gaming to you. This is Immanuel Can, signing out.